Welcome to the Mobile Workforce Podcast, where we sit down and have real conversations with business leaders that have been where you are. During these interviews, we'll dive into what it takes to improve systems and champion processes that maximize performance. Each week, our trailblazing guests share their experiences and understanding of the workforce to help inspire change, challenge our thinking, and share what it takes to successfully travel the road to profitability. Now here's our host, co-founder and chief evangelist of About Time and WorkMax, Mike Merrill. Hello and welcome to the Mobile Workforce Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Merrill, and today we are sitting down with Jeremy Owens. Jeremy is the CEO of U.S. Construction Zone and also 3 Generations Improvements. In today's episode, we're going to talk about the important role of effective networking in construction today and how it's changed these last few years, as well as the importance of using technology to network better and to be more people-centric, and of course how that allows us to connect to others on a more personal level, even if they're all the way around the other side of the globe. So thank you, Jeremy, for joining us today. Looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you so much for having me, Mike. I look forward to it.
Awesome. So I guess to start off, one of the things that I wanted to kind of launch with in the conversation is, what's the difference between a peer network and also mentorship?
Yeah, it's different. I mean, a network itself is just a community of like-minded individuals, right? So for U.S. Construction Zone, I've tried to get together a community of executives in construction at all aspects. But mentorship really doesn't happen right away. You have to have that trust factor. So, for me, mentorship, it comes with some time investment. You have to get to know people. They have to trust you. You can't just become a mentor or be mentored yourself without having a level of trust there. So really, we're in that community building stage for what we're doing now, but mentorship is definitely where we'd like to go, especially when those relationships really develop.
That makes sense. So with mentorship and talking about networking, how have those things changed over the last decade or so with technology and other things going on in the world?
Yeah, it's strange. It's the biggest change was MySpace in 2003. So, back in the day, it was there wasn't a lot of internet going on, right? So when we were growing up, and for me, it was college where things started to really change. In 2003, MySpace came along, and then shortly after that, Facebook and some of the others followed suit, and that's when things changed. And networking became online, right? So we all started doing things more online, and it became a little fake in a lot of ways. A lot of the social media has not been great, for obvious reasons. It's been very divisive, and especially with COVID and politics and all the things that have come our way, as a society, we've fallen on our face with this. It hasn't been a great show. Networking in general changed quite a bit. And then the pandemic hit, and I think what it did is really change it again, because it made us go like, crap, I really need human connection again. And, the online stuff is great, but I actually do need some face-to-face and touch, and we all need that. It's just part of how we've survived as a species. So I think it changed a lot after the pandemic as well.
Yeah. So obviously 2 polar opposites of, direct connection, and then also this virtual thing where someone could literally be all the way across the globe. Generally, having that technology and that capability, how do you feel like that's changed things overall from an opportunity perspective?
Yeah, I like it because, I still am a big fan of events and conferences. And, I never want to replace that. I think this is only enhancing it, because you're able to connect with those people through the year. So you meet someone at the event, and that's really how I formed this idea was, somebody at an event said, hey, I wish there was a better way for us to stay in touch so that we could bounce these ideas off each other through the year. And, I think that's really true. I think we go to the events, we meet some great people, we get a business card, and then what happens? Typically, you just chuck it, or it goes in your drawer with your other 5,000 business cards. And for me, I wanted a way to connect with those same like-minded individuals. And most of us don't compete, nationwide. We have a very local, market. So, you could share trade secrets and talk about what you're doing great and where you're failing. And there's not like oh, why'd I just tell them that? Most of us are, a 100-mile radius is about it,
Yeah, driving distance, right? Essentially.
Yep. Yep.
So what are some of the tools that you find useful to connect with people and stay connected throughout the year between conferences, let's say of an annual event?
Yeah, I mean, I think it really, most people are familiar with LinkedIn. Obviously there's a lot of communities everywhere, right? And there's communities within LinkedIn, there's communities within Facebook, and what we found as a research in social media is that it's starting to get more niche. So before, MySpace, Facebook got created, everyone's like, I want as many connections as possible, let's just get them all. And now it's about how can we get a more niche community so that you can actually get productive, not just every industry, every person, because it's just too distracting otherwise. It's hard to wade through all that crap. So you want to have that niche kind of focus so that you can, actually find mentors or actually find good advice as opposed to just a social media network. So for me, I think, niche communities, that's what I tried to do with US Construction Zone, is create a niche community of just construction executives, but all aspects. So you could be in remodeling, you could be, a home builder, you can be in distribution, wherever you're at. I think that we all have similar pain points right now.
Yeah, so you're saying you have kind of some sub communities that are more specialized to the type of group that somebody wants to belong to.
Yeah. So what we've done is we've rolled out private community options. So in the beginning, it just launched in October, so we're still pretty new. We're still just gaining members right now, but eventually we want to get to the point where you can create that private community as well. So I do siding windows decking. Maybe I want to have a group of just those individuals so that we can really talk about specifics, products, manufacturers, lead times, supply stuff, that's where I'm headed. But obviously we got to get the membership up before we're all, have enough people to form those kind of private communities.
Yeah, that makes sense. So for those that maybe are less comfortable with the online thing, or maybe they're not as savvy with it, maybe they want to meet somebody in person, see the whites of their eyes, shake their hand. What are some recommendations that you can share with the listeners that they could get involved with at a more local level to at least start these connections and then maybe.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's really important. I mean, back when my grandpa started in the 50s in this industry and my dad in the 70s, there wasn't online. There wasn't, the events were the Rotary Club. They were, being part of your community chamber. It was, things were different, and, people aren't doing that anymore. So I think if you get involved in your local community, you really not only find great connections there, but you also find your passion for giving back. So, you're at your community mixer and somebody says, hey, we have a need in your community for this, and then before you know it, you're working with a charity organization, and your whole team's excited about it. So I think there's a lack of involvement in general, and we're seeing that from a number standpoint as well. As chambers, rotaries, all those things that used to be really popular are not so much anymore. So I would say that that's one way to get involved, and then the other way is to say yes to more meetings. And I say that's one of my keys to success is I say yes to virtually every meeting. Like, unless it's like super salesy, right? I basically am saying yes because I don't know what I'm going to learn from it. And it's just about, if I'm really trying to create a real network, then dang it, that's what I got to do. Right. And so whether they're in person or Zoom, I'm saying yes. But if someone asks me for a coffee and I'm looking at my calendar going, crap, I'm going to find a way to make it, because I feel like there's always going to be a win-win somewhere. Whether you're giving more, then eventually down the road, you're going to be able to call that person and say, hey, I need something. And I think there's a lack of saying yes these days.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, we've all had to gain a little bit thicker skin because of some of the other things, right, that you're talking about.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So with as people expand out from their own local community and start to get connections that are maybe more regional or maybe even national, what are some recommended things that they can get involved with to do a better job of that?
Yeah, I would say that it's just like anything in life, right? You get what you give, right? If you just go into these communities and you kind of scroll around and you just kind of look at it, then you're not going to get a whole heck of a lot out of it. You got to really engage and ask questions, and find out where people are struggling and maybe find out where you can help. I think it's really easy to post a question about what you need, but when someone asks a question about, something that they're struggling with, being able to spend some time and say, hey, this is what we're doing, or hey, if you want to take this offline and let's chat, then you really are, you're creating a community. You're creating a community of trust and a place where you can go to actually get those answers. Because what we're finding with a lot of our members is that they're pretty frustrated with, getting answers from Google, or, where do you get your answers, right? When you're an owner, you're kind of alone at the top, so you look to your left or to your right. That doesn't mean they're going to have the answer to your question. So who are your mentors? Who are you going to ask for advice? Or are you just going to go, recreate the wheel and then probably fall on your face a couple times when somebody else has already done it? So I think typically there's just a lack of just willingness to get involved, and then be willing to humble yourself and ask for advice.
Yeah, I like how you frame that. It sounds like you're promoting, look, add value to somebody else first, and then somehow later it'll find a way to come back to you.
Yeah, definitely.
So, are there some base level conversation type points or areas that you found are really effective at making those initial connections?
Um, I have it. I think it's, right now, obviously we're at a crossroads in a lot of areas in our industry, obviously from a labor standpoint and from a supply standpoint, and, messaging when it comes to women in construction and minorities, we've struggled for a long time. And I feel like we're at a crossroads in like all of these areas. So I feel like for most of the people I talk to, there's a need to get more involved, because we've found that, hey, we've just been putting our head down and being busy with our own work, and now we're at this point in our industry where, crap, we have to solve some problems. We can't just keep our head down and keep going. We actually have to get involved and be part of the solution, as opposed to just complaining about it, right? Which is pretty easy to do. And I think that we've all found that, the government's not going to fix it, our local government's not going to fix it. We as a community, as a group of individuals, have to come together and start to make these changes. It's not just going to magic wand itself.
Yeah, I like that, and I think you're really onto something there, where you're basically saying there's more. Well, this crossroads, so to speak. There's a lot more conversations happening today, and areas where we've got to pivot as an industry, like you mentioned, women in construction, or areas that maybe are a little newer conversation, and might be a chance for us to throw our hat in the ring and kind of help promote and champion some of these newer conversations to connect with more new people that we may not have met otherwise.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what we try to do when we find like a need. So we're doing our first live show next Wednesday, April 6th. And our first topic is women in construction. And we have two awesome women that are going to be speakers. And it's just basically an online platform where you get to network, but you also get to hear and chat with these speakers. And so we're really trying to find those people who are doing great things, and we want to highlight them. And also, you know, we don't have it figured out, but it's sure, like I said, it's sure nice to be able to learn from somebody who's already been there and be able to kind of, ride their coattails a little bit, as opposed to trying to figure it out yourself.
Yeah, that's fantastic. We've had quite a few guests on that are for National Women in Construction, or National Women in Roofing, or minority business owners, and other conversations that are very interesting and pretty compelling, pretty cool stories. So I applaud your effort in starting off on some of those things that are really a great conversation to be having.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. It's been fun. It's like I said, it's funny. Somebody would ask me the other day, like this whole saying yes thing. I watched I don't know if you've seen that Yes Man
Yeah.
with Jim Carrey, but yeah, it's the
Yes, I
same thing. It's just like,
have.
all these cool things happen when I say yes. I mean, obviously, easy with that, right? Not everything, but I mean, especially with the business thing, it just seems like one thing leads to the other, and then it's really one person leads to the other. It's like, oh, you got to meet this person, and it's just like this wild ride of just like following it and just letting it go where it's supposed to go, as opposed to me trying to control the whole dang thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think one of the other conversations, and I think I keep thinking of this topic. We've talked a lot about mental health in construction, and I think that that's another point that you have championed a little bit. Maybe tell us a little bit more about your perspective on that.
Yeah, huge for us as an organization. My wife lost her brother 2 years ago this month to suicide. So this is like a huge thing for us. And also, we've invested some time and energy and effort. We've had a couple podcasts with mental health professionals, and we're really just trying to figure out what that looks like and how do we support. But really, you can't support an individual until you get to know them. Like you said earlier, people-centric. Well, that doesn't just happen overnight. That happens over a long period of time. You can't say how you're doing without already having a level of trust and care between you two. You can't just saying how you're doing to a construction professional isn't enough. And what we're finding is that we're number one or number two every single year in the most suicide deaths as an industry. And people are like, "What? Are you kidding me?" But that's where we're at. We're behind fishermen and farmers. Usually we're 1, 2. So it's something that's been a little bit of a hidden secret for a long time. People think that it's, military or it's police or fire, things like that. No, construction is right there. And I think that part of the problem is that we lack empathy. We lack the skills that a lot of people have in just connecting. We're guys. We're strong. We don't want to ask for help. All of those things are a bad recipe for mental health. So, getting involved with people who are figuring that out. They're doing conferences. They're talking to even individual businesses one by one, and really kind of opening this topic up, because for most of us, this is all new.
Yeah, and I'm so sorry to hear about your wife's brother. That's just a horrible tragedy, and nobody should have to go through that.
No, but I think we're at the point now. Everyone knows somebody, and that it shouldn't be that way. But I think we're at that point now. I mean, it's with the pandemic, really put a giant spotlight that on for our kids and mental health, and I think we're seeing that. And I hope that it's a bigger conversation as we go forward from our political leaders, and it's not just something they talk about. I really hope that there's more action.
Yeah, and I thanks for bringing that up. I think again we've tried to shine a light on that as well and have those conversations on this podcast, and we'll continue to do so. And I think there's what can you really say to somebody who's been through that and been very directly affected? But I think having the conversation is where the healing can happen. Wouldn't you agree?
De- totally agree. It's where it starts. And if we've never had the conversation before, it's difficult for a lot of us. We're not used to having that conversation. And on my podcast, Sally Spencer Thomas, she's a worldwide speaker on this topic, and she was like saying, you say how are you doing, and then you actually have to say how are you doing again. Like you can't, like you have to really get into the nitty gritty of somebody, and it's hard to do. Or that's not natural for most of us, and I get it. I'm kind of like that in a lot of ways, but I'm learning to be more open to my staff and say, hey guys, mental health is important. Obviously time off and getting exercise and eating right. We have to do all these things. We can't just talk about it. We actually have to somehow create a program within our office where we're supporting each other with that.
Yeah, we're all, and like you mentioned, I think many of us, I mean, I know I'm guilty of being pre-programmed to say, oh yeah, doing fantastic. Thanks for asking. And really I'm
Totally.
having a terrible day. Right. And you just
Yes.
you don't feel comfortable talking about it.
Oh yeah, totally. I think that's where we're at. But I think what I've heard around the industry is that just having the topic and kind of starting the conversation, it really has opened up a lot of doors where people are like, damn, that guy actually does care about me. He asked about my son's baseball game. Like just getting the extra layer as opposed to just work. We have to talk about our families and our struggles and our good things too. And I think we're starting to see that as an industry, but just like everything, we got a ways to go.
Yeah, I think I mean this is unrelated topic, but I was recently it was actually like a elk shape archery hunting camp. It was just kind of a really cool fitness and training and all this. I really like the outdoors, and there was 50 men, a lot of muscle bound, tattoos all over the place, and once we once we got into some of these deeper conversations, and the people leading the discussions made us have deeper conversations. I mean, a lot of these men were reduced to tears, just sharing things and saying, I don't know why I'm talking about this. I've never told anyone this before. And here they are among, 45, 50 other people that they've never met before. And it almost became this safe place because, we just broke down some walls. And once one person's vulnerable, pretty soon everybody else feels more comfortable. And I think it's the same on our construction crews.
Totally right. And I mean, and that's creating a real man there. I think the fake, the what we think is a man is you choke down those tears and you don't go there. While being your best self, you're gonna have to go there. And if you want to be your best self for your staff and for your family, you're not going to be that person without it. So the vulnerability piece is huge. I think that word itself is one that if we can be more vulnerable, then I think there's some positive things to come.
That's fantastic. And I know in person it could be easier to do that, but kind of like the other example, maybe when you don't know people quite as well or they're not in your community, maybe that's a safer place. So maybe the remote or people from across the country or across the world, maybe you'd have an easier time opening up to them.
Yeah, I mean, I think a conversation is a conversation. I think we have learned to do this on Zoom. I think there's a lot of times it sucks, right? It doesn't work one day, or whatever. It doesn't replace the human contact, but I like the face to face. At least you can see some facial features, and I think there's a little bit more connection there. And I think that's one positive thing that came out of the pandemic is that we learned to connect nationwide again. And we don't have to go to the event to connect. I mean, it's still good to do it, but now we're learning all these new avenues that, okay, now let's stay in touch. And now we know that it's important to stay in touch. And I think the face to face, I think obviously Zoom is probably, making a fortune now because of it.
Yeah. Are there some tips or I mean, you mentioned yes man, that's a great example. You mentioned not turning down meetings. Are there any other tips you would give to people that maybe you're looking to open up a little bit more and connect with people? There's something you can advise them to do?
Yeah, I would say get engaged. I would say that that's part of it. All that is just getting engaged, and maybe it does start with your local community, and maybe it starts with a staff meeting about we're not going to talk about sales today. We're going to talk about what charity organization are we going to support? What are we going to do this year? Let's put something on the calendar. You can't just talk about it because a year goes by like that, 2 years by like it's just too quick. We're too busy. So we just find something, a marching order that your whole team can get behind and say, yeah, I want to support that. Let's do that this year. And then before you know it, you get a little kind of money in the action. You get, excitement going. And then, but you're doing it for the right reasons. And that's how the younger generation, that's how they want to work. They want to get involved with a company like that. And I get that. I tend to protect the younger generation. I have a couple teenagers. I get they're a little different, but they want to support organizations that are giving back. They're not all about the money. And I can appreciate that about them. They look beyond the money. They look, hey, what are these owners doing? What is this company doing to give back to the community? And that's who I want to work for. So I think if you can do that, I think it'd be awesome.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up. Actually, the last episode that we just released was with a guest named Jen Silver, and Jen is a woman roofing owner and an influencer within the roofing trades, and she talked a lot about that. This younger generation that really needs to have a cause. They'll work twice as hard. They'll run through a wall for you if you are giving back and being charitable and working on a cause where maybe if you ask them to stay a little extra to finish a project, they're not as inclined to do that.
Yeah, totally. I totally agree.
So sounds like you're on to a lot of great things. You're doing a lot of really valuable and I think important stuff within the industry and within society today. What can people do to get involved and join the U.S. construction zone?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking. Yeah, just go to usconstructionzone.com and it's free to sign up. We have no plans of creating any subscription fees or anything like that. We really just want if who we're describing is you, then that's the kind of person that we want on there. We want people that are willing to give back. We want people who are people centric, that are that they kind of are, they want to leave the industry better than they found it. Maybe they care about a legacy, which I do deeply. I don't care about a job and what I leave. I want my kids to be, and my family to be proud of me and all this time I spend in work. Damn it, might as well make it good, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we spend so much freaking time doing this. Let's not just leave it as a job and retire and that be it. Hopefully something else continues on. And so I think that would be for me. I think that's why I'm doing it.
Yeah, I love that. I think most people want to be involved with something that really means something and that matters, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think now more than ever. I think that everyone's trying to customize their community now. We're sick of the status quo. We want some more positivity in our lives, and I think we can create that. And I think it's here. And I'm super excited because the people I meet, just like yourself, there's so many really cool people out there, and you know, you just haven't met him yet. And so it's been fun to kind of just go meeting to meeting and even all over the world. I was on a podcast with an Australian. It was just so cool to talk about the differences that we in construction. And it's fun. It's a wild ride.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I applaud your efforts. And I wonder, just as far as this part of the conversation goes, what's the one thing that you really hope the listeners come away with after hearing our conversation today?
Yeah, I mean, we talked a lot about, just people, but it really is that. I mean, if we're really going to solve these things with our labor force and with mental health, and it takes one coffee meeting, one Zoom meeting at a time. And it really does take that. It takes one. And then, I had a meeting with somebody who told me after we were talking about mental health about his struggle with addiction, and he was thinking about coming out to the construction industry. And it's like, dang, well, that would have never happened if we didn't kind of get deeper. So I would probably say that it's just one meeting at a time, and it just takes the right question at the right time, and just trust, right? I mean, they trust that you're a trusting, honest person, and that you're there just for the right reasons. Then they'll probably open up to you. But it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen over the phone. It's not going to happen with just being busy and saying that you're busy all the time. You need to just be present for them somehow. And I think we're all busy right now. We could all certainly say that, and we could all certainly say, I don't have time for a meeting, but just make time for the meeting, I guess.
Yeah, I love that. Opportunity is not going to beat us over the head and drag us into, into it being. We got to go out of our way and allow it to happen, right?
Exactly.
Love that. So just to wrap up on a couple personal questions, what is something that you are grateful for in your professional life?
You know what? It's cool. I mean, I got to briefly work with my grandpa. We unfortunately lost him last year, our first generation in the industry. And, he started in the 50s, and he was our start in construction. And so being able to work with him, and then my dad, he's my hero. And so he's been someone that I've looked up to. So being able to work with your family and you're not killing each other has been a real treat for me. I think that that has been my favorite part of this, and just learning from them and how they built their network back then, and how I'm seeing the value in a different way now.
Well stated. That's awesome. So what is Jeremy Owens' superpower when you put your cape on in the morning after a cup of coffee or whatever to get rolling? What is it you're getting ready to go out and do?
Ah, that's a good question. I would say that, my ability to be empathetic and to kind of see where people are, and to understand that we all have a different starting point in life, and we all have struggles and challenges, and being able to not judge people for those things and be a listener, I think really has made me a better manager, a better person, and better husband and parent. And I think that learning to shut up, I think I've learned to shut up. And honestly, that's what it is. Because as a guy, I was a typical fixer. I tried to fix my wife and fix my kids. And then learning, when they become teenagers, you can't do that anymore. you have to listen and love, and typically they don't really want your advice at that point. So I think that my superpower would probably be more on the listening side and learning by listening more than I used to. So it's been fun doing that.
Well, that's a great one. Sounds like you're right on the right track. So congratulations on your success so far. And we definitely encourage the listeners to get out there and visit usconstructionzone.com. It's free to join. You heard it right here from Jeremy. Thanks again for joining us today, Jeremy. Lots of fun, and look forward to keeping connected here and into the future down the road.
I appreciate it, Mike. Yeah, let's stay in touch.
Sounds good. Take care.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today on the Mobile Workforce Podcast, sponsored by About Time Technologies and WorkMax. If you liked the conversation we had today, or were able to learn anything new or helpful, please make sure to follow us on our WorkMax page on LinkedIn and on Instagram at WorkMax_. And subscribe to the show on iTunes or your preferred podcast platform so you will never miss another insightful episode. Also, if you enjoyed the podcast, please leave us a 5-star rating and review and share the show with your friends and colleagues. Your support means the world to us and will allow us to continue providing impactful information with others looking to improve their results in their business and, in turn, their life.